Good evening again. Welcome to Boro Fan TV and the Monday Night Show with me, James Hutchinson. The weekend saw Boro earn arguably their best 3 points of the season so far as they turned over an impressive footballing side in Swansea City at the Riverside. Boro fans, how pleasing is it to see that Chris Wilder's side have shown a number of different attributes in winning the last 2 games. Joining me to look back on that Swansea game, as well as a look ahead to tonight's FA Cup third round draw and a preview of the weekend's game at Stoke City, are David Campbell and Jacob Waters. Welcome again, boys.
Evening, guys.
Good to see you, lads. We'll get straight into Saturday's game against Swansea, lads. And David, coming to you first. We had Dale Fry and Martin Piero back involved in the squad and available for selection, but Chris Wilder decided to leave them on the bench, and he went with an unchanged lineup from the game at Huddersfield. Any surprises for you in that?
No, not so much. I was relieved, if more than anything. I think once you've on the back of a good away win against Huddersfield, I know we conceded late in that game, but on the back of a good win against Huddersfield, I think you shouldn't ever change your winning side unless obviously injuries or suspensions. If all the 11 players are fit, for me, you never change your winning side. So I was quite relieved to see that, and we just carried on that momentum.
Yeah, and Jacob, we discussed in last week's show about Swansea liking to monopolise possession, and they didn't disappoint. But in fairness, in the first half, Boro restricted them to very few opportunities, didn't they?
Yeah, was it 68% they had?
Yeah,
Is that what it was?
Something like that. But we had better opportunities, I think. So you're going to come up against sides like that, and you're not going to dominate the game. And even he actually said that before the match as well. But I think even with that possession, it didn't really reflect. They didn't do amazing things with the ball. They're always going to create opportunities because of how they pass the ball, and because we're an expansive team now, so we do leave gaps. But even with that and less possession, we still created some good opportunities. So for me, as I was just saying to you earlier, I'm really pleased with that result because it shows a new spine to the team that we can play not great with a bit of resilience, good attitude, and come away with 3 points against arguably the best passing side in the champ, bar Middlesbrough.
Michael Pellin's echoing what you say there, Jacob. He said, so glad we got the 3 points. It was a tough game. And David, I mean, as with the 2 goals at Huddersfield the week before, Saturday's goal again was a well-crafted goal, but it maybe involved maybe a few unexpected participants, would you say?
Oh, yeah, Bamba's pass was a bit like Jacob's. No, it was defence splitting. Also, the run for Crooks. Crooks actually opened that space up as well. I know nobody's going to mention the run by Crooks, but he came to the left and all the space then developed to the right. And Isaiah Jones, it looked like he timed it right, but if Crooks hadn't made that movement, Jones wouldn't have had all that space. And then when he was going one-on-one with a keeper, I was thinking, Sparara and Watmore, if he doesn't square it here and he doesn't score, there's going to be absolute hell on. Yeah. And luckily enough, he finished it really, really well. Considering it was his first goal, he looked very composed.
Yeah, it was a composed vision. And then, Jacob, there, speaking of Isaiah Jones, I mean, it's easy to forget that this is his first full season at championship level. And for someone learning the game and in a new position, he's making great progress, isn't he?
Yeah. Can I just say that only a brilliant midfielder like Dave would have noticed that movement from Crooks? But yeah, he's brilliant. And as I said last week as well, if Spence comes back, he ain't going to get his place back straight away. He's doing all the right things. And arguably, he's probably been better defensively than attacking.
I would agree. Yeah.
Brilliant. But then he showed that bit of guile. Because when he went through, I was thinking, you better square this ball and not do a Hernandez and it not go to no man's land. And he picks out that bottom corner. And honestly, I was so chuffed. And you saw all the lads ran over because it's his first league goal. Is it actually? It's his first goal, isn't it?
Yeah.
So yeah, and for me, he just epitomizes hard work. He's good on the ball. Yeah, let's be fair, his end product at times isn't fantastic, but like Dave said last week, if it was, he'd be a Prem player next season. So because he's got every other attribute to his game. He's quick on the ball. He's direct. He's good. He can defend. He's not that big, but he still wins headers. He puts himself about. Takes players on. I mean, he's like Spence when Spence broke onto the scene and then went naff for a bit. Let's hope he doesn't go naff.
Do you
Fair
guys
point,
see
mate.
as a long-term option there now then? That was something that was discussed. Do you reckon that'll be his set position for Wild, or do you reckon it's just until January comes?
What do you think?
I think it will be his position now. I think he's learning that position, and I think we spoke about it last week. I think he's quite clued up on the defensive side of it, more so than maybe say Spence or somebody else. And I just think he perfectly suits a way a Wilder team will play. And I think that position's is there now to lose, to be honest.
Yeah,
And we don't need to bring someone in for that position. You're not
I think we've got other priorities out of that position, to be honest, Dave.
right. It's interesting. Listen to what Jacob said there about Jed Spence bringing him back. I totally agree. I thought it was nailed on. We were going to bring a right wing back, but looking over the last couple of games, I don't know where you could bring him in and drop him because he's performed that well.
Yeah. Dan Shaw's got in touch with us, lads. He said, I said last week, I'm glad he has his first 11, but let's see against Stoke if it remains, and we'll get onto the Stoke game later on in the show. David, I mean, we said earlier on that, and Jacob mentioned about the Swans creating very little in the first half. Arguably, their best chance came from a misplaced pass from Marcus Tavernier that Jamie Patterson pounced up on. And then what followed that was a bit of a heart in the mouth moment. How did you see what happened there involving Patterson and Daniels?
Well, for the penalty, I thought it would have been soft if it was given, and that's not rose-tinted glasses. I just thought his touch was a little bit heavy, and he pushed it a bit further out. I know fans are going to say, "Oh, typical Boro fan," but I called it the other week when it was a sending off, and I believe that. But before that, when he was one-on-one through, I'm so glad Dykesdale never pulled him back because he'd have been sent off. There was a touch where Dykesdale looked at him to bring him back, and if he'd have gone down there, we'd have been 10 men and we might have been talking a complete different game. But on Saturday, I think sometimes your luck's just in, and similar to how we were against Peterborough when I thought earlier in the season when I thought that was a penalty, we got the luck on Saturday and I thought we rode it and we got the 3 points at the end of the day. But how many times have we said this season where we've had no luck?
Yeah, well, the last two home games, arguably.
Yeah, you're right.
Yeah.
And Jacob, the best illustration, I think, of the performance at the weekend was Paddy McNair. Has he now cemented his place as part of the back three as opposed to a midfield player now?
I'd hope so. Yeah, and even more so, he fits Wilder's style in that back three. And he was brilliant, I thought. And I think it's a matter of time before he moves more and more into what he expects from a centre-back as well, with his overlapping. But he can play the ball, obviously, as his trade as a midfielder. So for me, watching Paddy play, the best position when he's excelled is centre-back. And I do think he has excelled in centre-mid as well. But if I put them side by side, I'd say he's worth more to us as a centre-back.
I don't think he likes it, though. Do you?
Tough. I'm paying for these season tickets, Paddy.
Mark Ibbott, thanks for watching there in North Wales. Hope you're happy tonight, pal. And I think you've made a good point there, David. I think he probably prefers to be in midfield, but I think in terms of value to the team and what he can bring, he's better off being in that back three at the moment, isn't he?
Oh, 100%. And we all touched upon it last week, didn't we? Saying we need versatility with our signings, and I think he offers that. But from what we need as a defence moving forward, I think him and Fry have got to be the number two, and then add a third. I can't see anyone else who we've currently got cement in a centre half position. I think Bamber, as much as he tries, just isn't a long-term option. So we definitely need to get another centre half in there.
Yeah, definitely. And at the top of the show, David, we mentioned that we had to show different qualities this week in getting the victory compared to the Huddersfield game. But to be honest, these are the type of games, and that's the type of style of play you sometimes have to employ if you want to be successful in the Championship, isn't it?
Yeah, Jacob earlier, how many times under Warnock we'd have just broke down and we'd have conceded there. Resilience as well. We were just blocking everything. There was and what was it? Was just not one or two blocking. It was the whole team at times were putting it on. And the last 15 minutes was it was still hard to take watching it because you were like, oh, it's a matter of time here. But I thought it was quite entertaining and refreshing as a fan as well. I thought it was it was nice to see that other side of us rather than there being a pretty nice team who would just take it all over. We were competing, and that's the sign of a good team, isn't it?
Yeah, I agree with you, David. Jacob, we spoke before we come on air tonight, and I said it certainly wasn't the best performance of the season by a long way, but I think Boro fans will have come away from the Riverside at the weekend feeling as though, well, do you know what? I can't question the commitment. I can't question the effort. You're getting everything from the players in a red shirt today, and that's what we want to see on a match day, isn't it?
Yeah, definitely. We saw a different side to the game, and when you're playing a team that retains possession as much as them, you have to play a little bit differently. And I thought, for what Swansea are when they're passing the ball, I thought we played really well. Really, like we contained them decent enough, and we've seen a different bit of spine. So for me, I walk away thinking we've shown a different dynamic. So for me, that builds it as a fan a bit more. So it's not just when we dominate possession. If we're out of possession, we've got a bit of spine about us. We didn't implode. If it was a Warnock team, we'd have been compact and sat behind the ball against a passing side like that, and we might have nicked a draw out of it.
Yeah.
With Wilder, because of the expansive style of football, there's more areas to exploit for Swansea, but we did actually limit them. They didn't have loads of opportunities. They had a few, but that's going to happen. And against the Prestons, for example, when the opportunities were literally nil, apart from some freak ones, and they took it, it looks a little bit differently. But so I'm pleased,
Yeah. David Smith, thanks for watching, mate. Hope you're well. He said, evening and all, great to get back-to-back wins, so pleased for Isaiah Jones, onwards and upwards. And Ray Hoggy said, must be the first time in a long time we haven't lost a 1-0 lead. And I mean, that's another thing, David, in a way, it's, as Jacob's mentioned, it's building confidence, building belief, not only between the players, but also the fans and everybody. And it's like, do you sense that there's a connection growing week by week between the club and the fans at the moment? You see things developing there, which maybe haven't been there since possibly Karanka times.
Yeah, because we're seeing a direction of which way we're wanting to go and how we're wanting to play. But for me, what's the most refreshing thing to hear is Chris Wilder coming out and actually talking sense of what the fans are actually thinking. You know, he's trying to bring the whole together. I know Warnock had a good rapport with the fans at the beginning, but he doesn't gloss over any decisions. If they go against him, he'll say, yes, but we could have done this better. He's not pointing the blame. And I think a lot of the fans are getting on board with that and can understand what we're trying to achieve in the bigger picture. The feel-good factor comes with the results, but I think Wilder would have learned more of that win on Saturday than he has even the defeats, because I thought we showed more in that game than the draw against Millwall and the defeat against Preston. I think he'd have learned a lot more on Saturday because of how we played as a team.
Yeah. Jacob, I was just going to bring you in. Colin Fry sent us this question here. What's your opinion on the keeper situation? We had a clean sheet. It's funny to be talking about after a clean sheet, but I'll throw this one to you. Sorry, mate.
No, I'm happy to answer that one, Colin. Oh, my goodness. Oh,
yeah.
I don't know. Like, be careful what you wish for. You want Lumley out, and we get this lad in. And he made He made 2 decent saves. If that free kick had gone in, it would have been awful. So it was a routine save. The 1-on-1 was a decent save. But I want to be careful with my words. I think he might be the worst keeper I've seen for Middlesbrough. I think he's that bad, because you've got to take into consideration he's not had much to do. Every game we've come away and saying, well, he's not really had that much to do, Daniels. His distribution's awful. I hope he doesn't watch this. I bet you're lovely if you are watching. I'm just being honest with what I see. He doesn't command his box at all. He flaps at it and he tries to punch it away. And I think a couple of times he's been lucky because he's punched it into dodgy areas or flapped at it in dodgy areas and someone's cleaned it up. I mean, his distribution's the worst thing. It normally goes out of play. And even on the weekend, he was chesting it before picking it up. I don't know whether it's nerves. I don't know what it is. But for me, Lumley had a few clangers. He hasn't had clangers, so to speak, yet, if I remember rightly, but he's not really had that much to do. But yeah, we need a keeper change. Lumley's not the answer. He's not the answer. He fills me with absolutely no confidence. And for a passing side that are coming out the back as well, which try and hit the fullbacks around the halfway line, he can't hit the fullbacks, so that's no good because it keeps going out of play and then give them possession. So my honest opinion is we definitely need a goalkeeper and get a couple of them out.
we've got two number 2 goalkeepers that have never been number 1 before, and I think it's highlighted, isn't it?
Yeah. Colin Fries said, thanks for answering that, Jacob. You've just said what he was thinking, so thanks for doing that, mate. You've done his dirty work for him. Lee Fisher's also got in touch on the keeper situation and said, Jack Butland's not playing much at Palace at the minute. Would he be a good loan deal? Would you go down that route, David?
Oh, 100%. He's established in the Championship for Stoke, wasn't he? He's had call-ups for England. The only thing is he's going to be on big money at Crystal Palace, so you know, it just depends on how we're going to approach that situation. But I agree with Jacob. I think the first priority for us in January is a goalkeeper, because it just instills confidence throughout the team.
Yeah. Well, just a couple more things on the Swansea game before we move on from that. And David, did that victory on Saturday, was it any sweeter because of what happened down in South Wales in March when we had that controversial defeat, or did that not even enter your mind?
It didn't enter my mind, but until I heard it on the radio on the way back, and I think it would have meant a lot more if Neil Warnock and Houlihan and Steve Cook was still here. But a lot's gone on regarding managerial appointments. But they were a good team, Swansea. I tipped them to be relegated early on in the season, but watching them play football there, and you touched upon it, James, they bring in different managers in, but they stick with the same philosophy. And as a fan, sometimes you look at it and say, do I want to play good football and not get results, or get results and play bad football? And Swansea, doesn't matter who the manager is, they just continue with the same style of play. And as a club, they've got that philosophy.
Yeah. Where do you stand on that, Jacob? Do you know where David just mentioned there about good football, but not necessarily the results, or just being win-orientated, results-orientated? Where do you stand on that debate, Jacob?
There's got to be a project behind it, so it depends where you're at. But for us, as I said a couple of weeks ago, the results I think will come with good play. So if there's a project and there's a behind the scenes to it, then yeah. But you can't just be a flowery team that play the ball and lose, because eventually you're going to go nowhere. So there has to be, you know, Warnock said it, it doesn't have to be pretty football, you just need to get results. As fans, we want to see good football. And I think when you've got a project behind it, like they've done with Wilder, we know we're going to get some good footy and the results will eventually come. I'm not a fan of the old Stoke play of, you know, the old Stoke. I'm not saying this season, but belting the ball up top to try and hold it up. But I don't want another Pulis era. None of that. Even if it meant 3 points every week, that is awful to watch, isn't it? So I think there's got to be a balance. But I certainly am very, very, very pleased with how this team's playing at the moment and the project going forward.
We haven't played good attacking football since the promotion winning team, have we? Or the playoff team where we got beat. That for me, we played really good football that season. But other than that, I'm struggling to remember, apart from the 90s where we've been so dominant.
Possession, yeah. And before we move off the Swansea game, David, just again, I think it was touched on a little bit earlier in our discussion tonight. Chris Wilder, his post-match comments, again, refreshingly honest in his assessment of the game. And I can imagine him being just the same in the dressing room as well. Do you think?
100%. And that's what you're wanting as a player as well, because you know where you stand. You're not hearing two different stories to the press and then what you're hearing behind closed doors. If you're saying the same things behind the scenes, which what we can only imagine, look, these lads have got 4 weeks left until the January transfer window opens. So if they're not putting a shift in now, it's only going to affect them in the long term. But it's refreshing to see how open and honest we've got as a manager, and I think fans are getting on board with that.
Yeah. David Bentley echoes those statements he said there. It's a breath of fresh air to see a manager explain his tactical approach and see how the team is starting to show that and that they understand what he wants. So it seems as though everyone's pretty much on board with it at the minute. So that's Swansea done and dusted, boys. We'll look ahead to the Stoke game further on in the show, but in other news, I know one or two of our viewers have commented it in the comments section at the side here about Graham Lee leaving the club last week as Boro under-23 coach, and he's now the boss at Hartlepool United, and everyone at Boro Fan TV wishes him the best over at Poles. But David, do you think that'll cause any sort of disruption at the Boro in terms of how things run at the club?
Potentially it could do. I think from what I was led to believe, the under-23s and under-18s are going to continue with the same philosophy as the first team, which we were talking under the golden era when Woodgate was appointed, but it never actually took lift off. Where now apparently that's what they're getting on board with. So if was Graham Lee playing wing back formation, he wasn't in the 23, so it would have took time to change that. So I think if Wilder does make the appointment, whoever he brings in as under 23s, I think obviously he's going to set a stone, and this is what I want to transition from the first team to the under 23s. And for me, Graham Lee, I just want to wish him success at Hartlepool. I think it's going to be a tough job there in his first job, and he hasn't been really given experience alongside him, and that's what worries me a little bit, really, regarding that, because we seen it with Woodgate, and I thought that was the most ludicrous decision we made with that appointment by not putting an experienced head alongside him. So it'd be interesting to see how it works out. But he got a good start.
Yeah, definitely.
It's going to be interesting. I said, I think as well, it's going to be interesting to see who gets promoted from the academy upward, because Wilder was saying he wants to give people opportunities. And as you said, if they adapt the same philosophy and same style of play, it's going to be very interesting to see who starts coming through, because we know we've got a brilliant academy. We've got some crackers, haven't we? So, and we spent a lot of money on it, so it should be. So it's going to be interesting.
Didn't he say £1 million a season or something? I'd read the other day. That's how much our academy's costing us.
I read something in that region. Where was it in the Gazette, or is it?
I think Wilder touched upon it, didn't he? I'm not sure.
David Bentley's got in touch again, lads, and he said he's heard Steve Agnew's been around the club again. Do you lads think he'd be a good choice to replace Graham Lee, or involved in the backroom staff somewhere in the first team? What's your thoughts on that, Jacob?
Apparently, he was buying a Piero's top. Maybe so. I reckon Kieran Scott's going to have a lot to do with this if it's going to be implementing Wilder's philosophy. So I think if he can adapt to that, then maybe so.
Regarding the appointment for Graham Lee at Hartlepool as well, sorry to go off a little bit track here, but it'd be good for some of the under 23s who we know have got potential to potentially go over to Hartlepool, like your Josh Coburns, and if you can take a few, Conor Malley, if you can take a few of them, it's only going to benefit our club in the long term.
Totally. I mean, you look at Isaiah Jones as a case in point there. He went to Queen of the South last year in Scotland, Scottish Championship. I would say probably that standard of football is about on par maybe with League Two. And he's a different player this year. And I think a lot of our players, you talk about Premier League players, need loan deals in the Championship to toughen them up, get them used to playing week in, week out. And I think some of our young lads need that lower down the league's done, and I think that would be a great shout, that, David.
100%. I think a few of their egos might need dropping, though, James. The likes of, I'm not saying they're too big for the boots, but the likes of Steve Walker and maybe Wood, who's come back from Hibs, they might see them a bit too big for Hartlepool, but now Graham Lee's going there, they know what he's all about, so they might join him, and first team football is exactly what they need.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, Colin Fry agrees. And David Olsen's mentioned throwing someone's name in the hat here, Jacob, for possibly under 23 role, and that's Sol Bamba. Do you think? I mean, he's come here. Warnock brought him in on coaching duties initially, and then he's ended up playing, I think, a lot more than what people expected. But could you see Sol Bamba maybe getting a role with the under 23s?
I think he's playing till he's 40. Him. Maybe, but all seriousness, maybe so. He's clearly a very influential man. We don't know what his coaching abilities are like, but yeah, maybe so. It'd be nice to think for Sol that he could do that. Obviously, he was hoping to get that at Cardiff, wasn't he? But
yeah,
it sounds like Cardiff dealt him a bit of a short hand with how he was treated there. So it'd be nice to think he could, and if he can have a good effect. But I think he's very much for this season, certainly a first team fixture, isn't he? Because he does add some solidity at the back, even though he's got a bit of a mare in him at times.
Talking about a short hand, that goes back to Agnew as well, doesn't it? He was given a short hand when we were more or less relegated, and I know a lot of fans don't like him because they think he took us down. But as a coach, he's an absolutely fantastic coach, and a lot of players who played under him still commenting on how good of a person he is in the dressing room and how much he's progressed their careers.
Where's he at? Didn't he go? He went to Villa from Boro, didn't he? Is he still at Villa?
Well, he went to Newcastle, didn't he? And then
Newcastle with Bruce, yeah.
Who went to Villa? One of our coaches?
Steve Round, he went.
That's it.
Yeah.
Well, lads, we'll move on from that. And I know you're dying to talk about this now, Jacob, but we'll move on to your favourite subject, which is Marcus Tavernier.
Hang on, I'm just getting my facts out.
Yeah, go on, and you get them loaded up there, mate. I mean, prior to last weekend's game with Swansea, Marcus Tavernier spoke to the press. What stood out for you in the interview that he gave on Friday? What did you take from that interview?
I didn't take much from his performance on Saturday, I'll tell you that, though. He was very, very calculated and measured with his responses. I thought for a young lad, first and foremost, his responses, he was very, very calm. He was very good at speaking, which I was impressed with. And I think he genuinely does love the Boro because he's been here for a long time. He's seen a lot of managers. He's seen a lot of changes. And he was given an opportunity when he was released by Newcastle. So I think he genuinely wants to play for Middlesbrough. It was interesting that they even told him to go and do that interview, by the way. That must be a Wilder thing. I'd have thought that is a Wilder thing. Maybe he's
calculated, I think, Jacob.
Yeah, a bit of criticism. He knows that. So he's like, get him out there. Let's see what he's got to say. And he can actually speak and hold a conversation. He's quite a jovial character. He's very, very smiley. He's good when he's responding. He's quite engaging, etc. So, I mean, you know my feelings about Tava. I really do think that he is a brilliant player, but I'm going to say in the making, and he has sparks of brilliance.
Yeah.
And I still believe, even though I'm going a little bit off track here, by the way, but I still believe, even though I'd say his performances, even since Wilder centrally, I think he had I can't remember one when I was like he played really well there, but apart from that, he hasn't. He's been probably the worst of the midfield three. I've got to be honest. But he still has the tenacity and guile, and I still believe that he'll turn a corner for us this season as well.
What I'll say to that, Jacob, is that I think probably in a creative sense, he probably has been the quietest of the three in midfield. But I think in a perverse sort of way, I think he's done a heck of a lot of good work without the ball since Wilder's come on board. Yeah. And in a defensive sense and in a way, that maybe shows a maturity to his game that maybe some people don't credit him with having.
Yeah, well, if you look at that game, at the Swansea game, off the ball is probably, I'd say, where we won the game. And although Howson did start to tire at the end, Crooks and Tab did not stop. And you've got to think, in that midfield, you cover a lot of ground because it's not consolidated in the middle. It's expansive. So they are, like, Crooks is belting across to that right-hand side to close the fullback down. Tab over the other side is doing the same thing. So they're getting a lot more meters in the legs than they were. And off the ball, they were brilliant. And Tab, and I completely agree, he doesn't get as much praise for what he does off the ball and his tracking back, etc. However, it's a holistic game, and you can't just have one side to it. He has to improve. He has to improve his distribution of the ball. And I think with Piero now fit, and once he starts to get a little bit more game time in him, and we have heard how technically gifted he is, and we've seen glimpses of it. As I said last week, it's only a matter of time before he'd either be hoyed out, or he'd have a bit of an improvement to his game.
Yeah. What surprised me with Tavernier and Crooks is they both do that. So yes, they're playing centrally, but they both end up on the wing and like splitting the midfield. And I can only presume that is an instruction from Wilder to go in front of the wing backs, because it's the first time I've seen that. There was Tavernier going on the left, and then Crooks was going in on the right at times, getting crosses in. And I thought I might just be naive here, but I thought that's what the wing backs were supposed to do. But the wing backs are going forward and they're supporting them on the wings, which I thought was an interesting tactic.
And have you noticed as well that the wing backs don't get at the fullback as much? What happens is they end up trying to play like an intricate triangle. So Jonesy will get it, Crooks will come over and meet him, and Howson will pop in behind, or one of the strikers will come across, and they'll start to play in triangles and try and almost pass their way through, which I'm not bothered about, like whatever the game plan is. But Jonesy, he doesn't really go at him as much. I mean, of course, for the goal, he belted down, but he threw on goal. But I don't know if you've noticed that as well. And the same with Boro on the other side. There seems to be less license to have a go and more keep that possession in the triangles and try and break them down.
Yeah, I think wing backs are going to bomb forward and get the crosses in, and it's just not been the case, has it?
Yeah. Just bringing it back to Tav, lads. Ray Huggy again's got in touch and said, Do you think someone else should be on the set pieces? He doesn't rate Tav's delivery.
Completely agree.
A lack of return on them. And David Bentley again saying, as you've mentioned there, Jacob, the pressure's now on Tav to start delivering in the position that he says is his best position. And as he said himself, Tav, he needs to be calmer in front of goals. And I think everyone would agree with that, wouldn't they, Jacob?
Yeah. I mean, I put him on the weekend to score because I wanted to come on here and be like, I told you. He didn't even look like scoring, did he? Yeah, and with that fella who said about the set pieces, totally agree. I think Howson's on the corners now, isn't he?
Yeah.
Johnny's bit, and I don't mind his delivery. He just drives and like floats them across the box, doesn't he? Like he doesn't whip them. He seems to like just float it in. Yeah, Tav needs to be taken off free kicks. Like every time he steps up, I'm like, oh no. I'd have Paddy on free kicks, or maybe Piero if he was playing.
Yeah.
But yeah, Tav. I think he's had a couple of decent free kicks. Like, has he ever scored one?
I can't remember a free kick going in.
He's took a lot as well, you know.
Well, we'll move on to other things, lads. We don't want to start bashing Marcus Tavernier on here. And tonight, in less than an hour, we'll know we're going to get in the third round of the FA Cup. Steve Golby, our resident Poley fan, obviously we're chuffed a bit at the polls are through, unlike Sunderland, and he's up for a Boro polls game in the third round. Ask both of you lads, coming to you first, David. Does the FA Cup mean anything to you now? Is it still special to you, or are you thinking, well, look, it's much further down on our list of priorities?
It's definitely down the list of our priorities. I mean, it's always going to have a special place because of the cup finals we got in the FA Cup, and it's nice to see you go on a cup run. But look, you need to be realistic. If we were in the Premier League, you'd want the FA Cup because you've got a good chance of winning it because of revenue. When you're down our level, it's sort of, yeah, it's nice if you get a Premier League team at home because you get to see the bigger stars. But when you set Hartlepool would be nice, but if you're talking about playing someone like Stockport or what have you, you're not going to get the fans in. People are just going to lose a bit of interest, and you're just going to start playing your fringe players. So for me, it has lost it from what I've seen when I was younger.
Okay, David Olsen said there, I'd love a cup run, but 3 points in the league would mean more to me at the moment. And where do you stand on the FA Cup debate, Jacob?
I'm in the same spot as David and Dave there. We're a championship club and our focus is different. We're not a Premier League club. We're not going to win it. It's nice if you get a win, if you can carry on decent results. So, for example, if we're on a winning streak and then you play a decent team and get a good result, it can only bode well running in at the next game. But to be honest, I'd rather not a big name. I'd rather play a Hartlepool or someone like that. Someone that I think that we're going to get don't want to be dodgy, but a comfortable win against and continue a good win streak than, get a Man City and get thrashed or something like that.
Right.
So, yeah, I'd love Hartlepool. I'd love it away as well. Away, I want to go to it.
Yeah, you don't want Hartlepool at home because the fans just won't get on board with that.
I don't know, David. I think people would. I think there'd be a lot of interest. And my worry with getting polls away would be getting a ticket, because I think it'd be an absolute nightmare.
What attendance do you reckon we would get, though, if we had Hartlepool at home?
I think because the media locally, I think, would whip it up. I think there'd be, and if the club did the ticket pricing right, I think there'd be well over 20,000 in for it.
Right.
Easy. Because I think polls would bring loads.
Yeah, that'd be good.
I mean, getting onto that subject then, who do you want in the draw tonight? I mean, personally, I want anybody but a championship team. I don't want to play another championship team in the FA Cup. I'll have either a Premier League team or a team from another division. I'm not bothered, really.
I'm with you on that, 100%.
Yeah. Jacob?
Hartlepool.
You want polls?
Yeah.
Ultimate for me would be I'd love to get Newcastle away, lads. I'd love to get them.
Or I wouldn't mind. Well, yeah, we're probably going to win at Newcastle. Sunderland, I wouldn't mind Sunderland either.
They're out, mate.
Are they?
Yeah, they're not in it. No.
Oh, gutted.
How about you, David?
Newcastle for me. It would be absolutely fantastic.
Yeah. There's a lot of love for that out there. Daniel Cheney said there, Newcastle at home, so we can play the fringe players and still win.
Jesus.
Colin Fry again, Newcastle at home. And I love this comment from Michael Pellin back on the Tav situation. I hope Tav does improve. It'll take 10 minutes off the show. 10 minutes. That's most of our content gone every week. If Tav starts playing well, Michael, I tell you.
He's reading the script, isn't he?
Ryan Sonley, hope you're well, Ryan, mate. He said, would you take Plymouth Argyle? Yeah, as long as it's here, Ryan. So I don't want to go all the way down to Home Park. It's a hell of a trek, that is, Ryan. And in fairness, Plymouth are having a good season in League One. Could be on the way back up to the Championship. But yeah, we'll see what that brings in the next hour or so, boys. But that's to the back burner. There's plenty of league games between now and then. The first one of those is at the weekend. We go to the Bet365 to take on Stoke City. And David, as always, that's going to be a tough challenge. It's always tough when we go to the Potteries, and it's never an easy place to play, is it?
No, and I know you've just said Bet365. Wow, daft that. It's the Britannia, isn't it? Oh, everyone knows it as the Britannia. Yeah, I was there when we got thumped in the Premier League with Ramirez down in tools and Cranky getting loads of abuse. And I've been there twice and I've seen two poor performances. And I watched them at the weekend against QPR and I was really impressed with some of the football they played. Jacob said it earlier, the old Stoke way. And I think a lot of fans still believe that, but this Michael O'Neill has gotten them playing some really good football. And I think fans are playing Stoke thinking, we know what we're going to play. They're a direct team and it's going to be a hard battle. I don't think it's going to be a hard battle. I think it's going to be a battle of who plays the nicest football, which is the first time you could probably say that in a long time. And it's going to be a very, very tough game.
Yeah. I mean, Jacob, David's mentioned there that Michael O'Neill, he's done a good job because when he came in there just about 2 years ago now it is, there were a side that was, well, it was like a toxic club. I think they'd come down from the Premier League. They were struggling. There was a lot of big earners on the wage bill, weren't performing. He's turned all that round now, and they've got a lot of good players in the team. I mean, for me, the lad that stood out yesterday against QPR, and I can't believe he's playing in the Championship, to be honest, is Mario Vrancic. I mean, he's one heck of a player in midfield, isn't he?
Yeah, but I think, look at the league. This year, it's not blessed with amazing teams, bar a couple. And we can make Stoke sound amazing, but at the end of the day, they just came off the back of 2 defeats before they won.
True.
Lost to Bristol City 1-0. And I can't remember who they lost to just after that. But they lost
Blackburn.
I mean, fair play. Blackburn doing all right. Bristol City aren't. So I'm not
looking compare it to the previous season, Jacob, don't you?
Hey?
Yeah. As fans, we always compare it to their previous season. So like Barnsley, everybody's talking about Barnsley this season from what they did last season.
Yeah. So for me, I'm looking at a Stoke and I'm like, yeah, they're 6. They're 4 points above us, but they don't terrify me. I think literally anybody, I'm up for watching anybody play the Boro and thinking we can get a result, bar realistically Fulham and Bournemouth. Apart from those two, I'd look and think we can get a result here. So yeah, they play some decent football. They don't score loads of goals, but they are tight at the back. For me, it's a winnable game. I think with the squad we have, with the project we have, I look at that and think it's a winnable game. They're not absolutely great. They're a decent Championship side that will be challenged.
Fans are going to say the same thing against us, though, Jacob. Do you think?
Yeah, probably. Yeah.
Yeah.
I expect anyone who aspiring to be in the top 6 in this league, they'll be saying the same thing. This league isn't singing and dancing this year, apart from, even with Bournemouth, it's like, yeah, they have got a few decent results, but you could have said about Bournemouth about a month ago that Bournemouth, I wouldn't necessarily put them in the same category as Fulham. But I know they've started to knock on now, but yeah, Fulham and Bournemouth, apart from that, for me, they're all winnable.
Yeah, and as Jacob mentioned there, David, Stoke had lost 2 games prior to yesterday. They looked impressive at QPR, but is there pressure on us to get a result? I know we've won our last 2, but bearing in mind we've got Bournemouth at home the following week. I mean, December's got some quite tricky games when you think we've started off with Swansea, Stoke, then you've got Bournemouth, Forest, Blackpool and Sheffield United over the Christmas period. It's a tricky spell for us here. So, I mean, what do you expect? You think we're going to go there, maybe looking to get a draw, keep the momentum going? Or do you think Wilder's thinking, no, I don't go for draws, I'm going for a win?
Yeah, I think Wilder will want to go for the win, but as fans, we just want to keep on improving, and anything we can pick up now until January is a bonus. Not that I'm wiping December out and saying, like, if we get beat all games, it's going to be good for us, but if we pick up any results up and now until January, I think that's going to define our season. It's going to be a positive. But yeah, I do agree with what Jacob says, that you should be going to likes of Stoke wanting to win, but realistically, it's going to be a tough task.
Yeah, I would agree with you. I like Lee Fisher's comment though. He's gone for a 1-0 Boro win with a Tavernier free kick, and sod's law, that it's got to happen sooner or later. It's got to.
Next week's show will be cancelled if that happens.
I might put that on as a bet.
Yeah, finish early for Christmas if that happens. And Jacob, you mentioned there the stats regarding Stoke. 10 home games so far this season, 6 wins, 2 draws, just the 2 defeats. But as you mentioned, they've only scored 15, but only conceded 9. So again, it doesn't point to a plethora of goals at the weekend. It's going to be another tight game, isn't it?
Yeah, I mean, they've lost 2, so they can lose 3. And I think with Wilder's philosophy as well, as Dave said, he'll be going there for the win. Like he's not going to be going to settle for a draw. Realistically, I would take a draw. Like I would take a draw at Stoke. That's certainly not a bad result to get. But as you've said, they're not abundant scorers. They've scored a couple more than us. They've let a couple less than us in, but we've had some howlers. I'd say a decent championship side. They're decent. But then again, they could lose a couple on the trot and they'll be 9th or 10th and will Stoke be as good? They're in the top 6 now and they come off the back of a decent result. It's all so up in the air this season. It's unlike the other seasons. It's weird how like it's one win and there's a turn of events and all of a sudden everything's bright and rosy again. But we're in the same demographic as the rest of them when it comes to that.
Yeah, well, that was us, Jacob. We went 6, played Birmingham at home, and turned in the performance that we did that day. And that just sums the championship up perfectly, doesn't it?
Yeah, definitely. And I've just read something there. Daniel, when he said, I've listened to the podcast and they're fearing a Wilder. Sorry, I'm doing your job here. Fearing a Wilder side. You mentioned in the warm-up they wouldn't fear us. Yeah, and that's brilliant as well. And that is down to an expansive style of football, fitter players playing an expansive style of football and getting the ball in dangerous areas and keeping it in those areas and dominating. So, yeah, there you go. It's come from him.
Do you buy into that? I'm sorry, Dave. I was just going to say, do you buy into that maybe psychologically now other sides and their fans will view Middlesbrough a lot differently since the change of manager?
100%, because they know when you're playing against a Warnock side of what you're going to get, and at Wilder, he's now got this image of what he did at Sheffield United, playing good, expansive football. So teams and fans will be looking at it thinking, oh, that's going to be a good game, rather than, oh, it's going to be a physical battle here. So, the mentality is flipped 100, massively. And I seen someone comment about Scolari earlier, and I thought it was interesting to see what he put on social media regarding him not scoring enough goals and working hard for the team. I think it just highlights to me how much we need a Ramirez or a Tomlin to get the best out of Scolari, start scoring goals, because with this wing-back formation, I can't see him scoring many goals up and now to the end of the season. Not one lack of trying, I just don't think he's going to get the opportunities.
Yeah, I would agree with that. Yeah. Gary Campbell's got in touch with us, mainly just reiterating what we've been talking about, lads, the last few minutes, saying talking about Stoke being a decent side, but that's what we are as well. And January is so important if we're going to improve and be better than others. And as you say there, David, that might be one of the areas we're looking at. We spoke about goalkeeper, possibly a number 10 or somebody in that role, but he might have that earmarked for Piero or maybe Tav in the next few weeks, depending on his performances. But there's so many teams, as you've mentioned, Jacob, that are in the same sort of boat. There's clubs that are all chasing this top 6 place, all got designs on it, and think they can get that this year because it's up for grabs, isn't it, for everybody?
Yeah, and I think we've got to look at as well, if you look at the stats, his chances created. Our midfield have done a good job, or wing backs, of creating opportunity after opportunity. Watmore probably could have had a couple more. Sporer should have had definitely a few. So if we were a little bit more potent as a strike force, and whilst I really like both of them, so I've fallen in love with Sporer, and I said I wouldn't do it for a loan signing, but I have, right? And I'm not dropping Watmore because he can finish, and he's got that tenacity and industry that we need on the pitch.
Yeah.
However, if you had to take one of them out, and you did, and you put in a striker who was more robust in front of goal, and he was going to actually put it in the back of the net, then you see Middlesbrough win that Preston match, for example. And I think that we need to start converting these opportunities, because look at stats. And you don't even need to look at the stats. You can just see watching the game. We've created a lot one-on-ones. Watmore's had a couple of one-on-ones in 3 games. Sporer has been in the box and had 10 yards, 12 yards out, and he's fluffed it and missed it. And from your strikers, if they're worth the salt, they need to be putting one of those away every 2 if they're going to be gilt-edged chances. So I think with someone up front who's going to either challenge them to get better and start putting them away, or going to put them away themselves, you'll see even further different style, not style, but side to the game with more goals. So, but I agree, you need to, in January, that needs to be, for me, the focal point, because we're doing everything else all right, apart from these little few horror goals we let in. But if you're creating more opportunities and outscoring teams, the other end, doesn't matter as much.
It's catch-22 in it, because if you buy a striker and he hasn't got the work rate and he's scoring goals, then everybody thinks it's fantastic. But if you buy a striker who hasn't got a work for and he's not scoring, then he's an easy target, a bit like Britas on Longo was.
Yeah, I mean, I think this decision will be probably taken out of our hands depending on where we are in the league. But Damon LaRoche has mentioned there about, would you be tempted to buy Sporer after the loan? And I'm not sure what the terms are in terms of bringing him in and how much it would cost up front and stuff like that. If we're in the Championship, it'll be potentially a huge outlay, wouldn't it, Jacob, if we're still in this division next year to bring Sporer in?
I think you've got to base him on his full season, because he's not worth €8 million right now. He's not. I mean, he's good. He uses his body really well. He's busy. He's got great feet, but he scored 3 goals at the end of the day. And that return's not 8 mil. However, let's say he has a turn and he bags over 10 for the season, for example, and he puts in a different type of shift as a forward player, links the game up. Crooksy gets 8 or 9 or whatever, and he's a fundamental part of a team that's thriving. Then I'd say €8 million. We'd look at that and go, maybe that's a good shout, because in this style of team, goals aren't just going to come from the front 2. Because of the way we play and how we build the play going to the last third in the pitch. So I think we're going to have to look at that at the end of the season. But I think we're all kind of falling in love with him somehow, and he scored 3 goals, so I don't know what's happening.
Well, before we finish the show, boys, all that remains is for to give the predictions for the weekend's game at Stoke. So, David, it is a tough game down there, but we've talked up Boro as well, and so have the viewers and so have the Stoke fans, it appears. So, what's going to happen down in the Potteries on Saturday?
I'm going to sit on the fence. I'd love there and get any type of result. I'm going to go for a 1-1.
Colin Fry's agreeing with you there, mate. How about yourself, Jacob?
2-0 Middlesbrough.
2-0, that'll be 3 in a row. There you go, it's right on cue. Daniel Cheney's gone in 2-0 Boro as well.
Talking about. He's actually my manager on a Sunday.
Really?
Think alike, yeah.
Oh, there you go. Now we know why you get your place in the team, pal. Gary Campbell's gone 0-0. God, I've seen a few 0-0s there in the past watching Boro play Stoke. And but a point wouldn't be a bad return, and it keeps momentum going. But to get 3 wins, I mean, we were speaking on the show not that long ago, Jacob, about saying I can't see Boro being a side that can string a run of victories together, yet that potentially could be the case if you go there and win on Saturday, couldn't it?
To be honest, I still can't see it. I'm just throwing pie in the eye predictions and being positive. But no, the reality is though, mate, we've set ourselves up well for 3 on the trot, because we definitely can do it. They're going to be a different side to Swansea. They won't have as much possession as Swansea will. They do like to pass the ball. They're a bit different, but they're not as intricate as Swansea. Yeah. I mean, even if Swansea were in their box with 5 players around them, they still try and pass it around them until they get rid. So we'll have a little bit more possession, which I think for a team like this bodes well. It makes for a good game. But yeah, I think we can get the win.
If we get a win there, the expectation of the fans will go through the roof, won't it?
Oh, mate, you know what I'm like. I'll be sending emojis of buses saying, I'm getting it going, lads. Here we go.
What are you going for, James?
I think a draw. We'll err on the side of caution. I think a draw would be a really good result down there at the weekend. I'd be happy with a point.
Yeah.
So we'll see what it brings, boys. But unfortunately, everyone, we've reached the end of tonight's show. My thanks to David and Jacob for joining me. And thanks, as always, to everyone for watching and contributing to the show out there. If you can, please like and subscribe to Boro Fan TV. We'll be back next Monday to look back on the Stoke game and preview the Bournemouth game on the Saturday before Christmas. as we reach the halfway point in the season. We'll let you all get off now and see the FA Cup draw and see which side's going to knock Newcastle United out in the third round, as it always happens every year. But until then, from me, everyone at Boro Fan TV, good night, have a good week, and up the Boro.
Up the Boro.
The Boro.